A king stands at the mouth of a furnace so hot that it has already killed the men who walked too close to it. He is looking into the fire, and he is counting. He counts once. He counts again. Then he turns to his counselors with a question that does not belong in the mouth of the most powerful man on earth. Did not we cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answer him, "True, O king." And then Nebuchadnezzar says the sentence that has puzzled readers of Scripture for 2,500 years. "Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt. And the form of the fourth is like the Son of God." 4 men, in a fire built to kill 3. Almost every believer has heard this story. Almost every believer has been told who that fourth figure was. And most of us have never gone back to the text to see whether the Bible actually says what we have been told it says. Because it does not say it the way you remember. And the words it does use are stranger and richer than the version we grew up with. So today we are going to do something simple and rarely done. We are going to read Daniel chapter 3 slowly. We are going to look at the original language behind the phrase Son of God. We are going to see who Nebuchadnezzar himself said the fourth man was, in his own words, a few verses later. And we are going to find something in the fire that most Christians walk right past. Something that burned, and something that did not. To understand the furnace, we have to understand how these young men ended up standing in front of it. The story begins in captivity. Babylon has broken Jerusalem. The temple treasures have been carried off to a foreign temple, and among the prisoners marched out of the ruined city are teenagers from the royal family of Judah. They have lost their country. They have lost their temple. They are about to lose their names. The king orders the best of them brought into his palace to be trained. Skillful in wisdom, the text says, cunning in knowledge and understanding science. 4 of them are named: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. Every one of those names carries God inside it. Hananiah means the Lord is gracious. Mishael means who is what God is. Azariah means the Lord has helped. So Babylon renames them Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. New names built around Babylonian gods. It is not paperwork. It is an attempt to override a soul. And before we go further, there is a question that every careful reader of this chapter eventually asks. Where is Daniel? He is the fourth of these young men. He is the one the book is named after. And in chapter 3, he simply is not there. He is not accused, he is not offered a second chance, and he is not in the fire. Scripture does not tell us why. We know from the previous chapter that Daniel had been placed over the province of Babylon and sat in the gate of the king, which suggests duties that may have kept him elsewhere. Beyond that, the text is silent, and that silence is worth sitting with. These 3 men stood without the one person whose presence would have made standing easier. Sometimes obedience happens without the friend you were counting on beside you. Then the king has a dream, and the dream terrifies him. He sees a great statue. Its head is fine gold. Its breast and arms are silver. Its belly and thighs are brass. Its legs are iron, and its feet are iron mixed with clay. And a stone, cut out without hands, strikes the statue on its feet, and the whole enormous image collapses into dust and blows away like chaff. But the stone becomes a great mountain and fills the whole earth. Daniel tells him what it means. The statue is a succession of kingdoms, each one lower than the one before, each one temporary. And then Daniel says to Nebuchadnezzar, "Thou art this head of gold." Now hold that phrase in your mind, because it is the hinge of everything that follows. God told this king through a Hebrew captive that he was the head, gold, the best part, but only the head. The dream was a message about limits. Your reign ends. Another comes after you. And then a kingdom that no one builds and no one destroys. Some time passes, and Nebuchadnezzar builds a statue, not a statue with a golden head and silver arms and iron legs. Scripture says the whole thing was gold, head to foot, top to bottom. Do you see what he has done? God said, "You are the head of gold, and there is more after you." And the king answered by building an image that is gold all the way down. It is not simply pride, it is a correction. He is editing the dream God gave him. The measurements are strange and they are deliberate. 60 cubits high, 6 cubits broad, 60 by 6. A tower of gold roughly 90 feet tall and only 9 feet wide, which is far too narrow to be a human figure in proportion. It was not built to look like a man. It was built to be seen from a great distance across the plain of Dura, standing over the crowd like a golden exclamation mark. Then comes the summons, and Scripture takes its time listing who was called. The princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces. 8 offices, every layer of the empire. The list is repeated again and again in this chapter, and the repetition is the point. Nobody was excused. Nobody was too senior or too minor. The entire administrative body of the known world was assembled on one plane to do one thing at one moment. And here is how the command was given, not by soldiers, by music. At what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the golden image. It is worth noticing how gentle the mechanism is. There is no whip in that sentence. There is an orchestra. The empire did not force the world to its knees. It played something beautiful, and the world knelt on its own. And then at the end of the invitation, the other half of the sentence, "And whoso falleth not down and worshipeth shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace." The same hour. No trial, no appeal, no time to reconsider. So the music plays, and Scripture says all the people, the nations, and the languages fell down and worshipped. A whole world faced down in the dust at the sound of a song. And somewhere in that vast field of bowed backs, 3 men are still standing. And it is worth pausing on what this furnace actually was, because the picture most of us carry is wrong. This was not a closed oven with a door. Babylon was an empire built of brick, and brick requires enormous kilns. Archaeologists have uncovered them across Mesopotamia. They were built as large chambers with an opening at the top for loading fuel and venting heat, and a lower opening at the side. That is why the king could stand at a distance and look directly into the flames and count the figures inside. That is why the soldiers had to climb up and cast the 3 men down into it. And that is why Scripture says they fell down into the midst of the fire. It was a working industrial furnace, turned into an instrument of execution. They are noticed immediately. Certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews. The word used there is vivid. In the original, it carries the sense of devouring their pieces, tearing at them like an animal. This was not a report. It was an appetite. And listen to how carefully they build the case before the king. They remind him of his own decree. They remind him of his own furnace. And only then do they name the men. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon. Whom thou hast set. They are turning the king's own promotion into the king's own humiliation. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar in his rage and fury commanded to bring them. Rage and fury. 2 words where one would do. Scripture is showing us a man who has lost control of himself in front of everyone he rules, because this was never really about 3 officials. The whole world had bowed. 3 men standing were enough to prove the whole spectacle was a lie. And then something unexpected happens. The king offers them a second chance. Is it true, he asks. And then, now if ye be ready, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet and all the rest, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, that is the whole offer. Do it now and this goes away. He does not want them dead. He wants them bowed. A corpse proves nothing. A knee proves everything. But he cannot leave it there. He adds one more line, and it is the line that decides the chapter. But if ye worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands? Who is that God? He has stopped speaking to three officials. He is now speaking past them, to heaven. He has turned an administrative problem into a direct challenge, and he has done it in front of every ruler in his empire. He is about to receive an answer. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. That old phrase means we have no need to defend ourselves here. There is nothing to discuss. This is not defiance shouted in anger. It is the calm of men who settled this question long before the music started. If it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. And then come three words that may be the most important words in the entire chapter. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Read that again slowly. They did not say God will certainly rescue us. They said God is able to rescue us, and if he does not, we still will not bow. Their obedience was not a wager on the outcome. Most of us, if we are honest, obey God with a quiet expectation attached. We will trust him, and he will fix it. These three men cut that thread. They removed the reward from the equation and obeyed anyway. That is the moment the fire had already lost. Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his visage was changed. His face changed. The mask came off in public, and he commanded that they should heat the furnace 7 times more than it was wont to be heated, 7 times hotter. Think about what that order actually accomplishes. If the goal is to kill 3 men, the furnace was already sufficient. Making it 7 times hotter does not kill them more. It only shortens the spectacle he wanted. Rage is not efficient. It just wants to feel like it is winning. He commands the most mighty men in his army to bind them and cast them in. And here Scripture records a detail that is easy to read past. The king's commandment was urgent, and the furnace exceeding hot, and the flame of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The soldiers died. The strongest men in Babylon were killed by the heat at the doorway before they ever got inside. Understand what that establishes. This was not a fire that a man could survive by standing in a cool corner. It killed the people who merely carried others toward it. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Bound. And the text is oddly specific about how they went in their coats, their hosen, and their hats, and their other garments, fully clothed, tied hand and foot, dropped, not walking. Everything about that sentence is designed to remove any possibility of escape or explanation. They went in as prisoners, bound, dressed, and falling. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonied and rose up in haste. Astonied is an old English word, and it is stronger than surprised. It means struck senseless, stunned out of thought, and he rose up in haste. The king of Babylon, in front of every governor and judge and treasurer in his empire, jumps to his feet. Something in that furnace has broken his composure completely. And notice, he does not send someone to check. He goes to look himself. Did not we cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto the king, True, O king. He answered and said, Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt. Take those words apart, because every one of them is doing work. 4, not 3. Loose when they went in bound, walking when they went in falling, and they have no hurt. 4 things went wrong with his execution, and he lists all 4 in a single breath. And then the line everyone remembers, and the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. That is how the King James translators rendered it, and it is how most of us have carried it in our memory ever since. A pagan king, staring into a furnace, recognizing Christ. It is a beautiful reading, and it is worth asking what the man actually said in the language he actually spoke. Daniel chapter 3 is written in Aramaic, and the phrase Nebuchadnezzar uses is Bar Elahin. Bar means son. Elahin is a plural form, sons of the gods or a son of the gods. Nebuchadnezzar was not a believer in the God of Israel at this point in the story. He was a Babylonian polytheist looking into a fire, and he described what he saw with the only vocabulary he had. A divine being, one of the gods, something not human. This is not a translation error. Older English versions render it a son of the gods, and they are being faithful to what a pagan king would have meant. And we do not have to guess how Nebuchadnezzar understood it because he tells us himself 25 verses later. Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who hath sent his angel and delivered his servants that trusted in him. His angel. That is the king's own conclusion, stated aloud in the same chapter. So the text gives us two descriptions of the same figure. What the king saw, a son of the gods, and what the king concluded, an angel sent by their God. Does that settle it? Not entirely. And here is why many faithful readers still see Christ in that fire. Throughout the Old Testament there appears a figure called the angel of the Lord, and that figure behaves in a way no ordinary messenger does. He speaks as God in the first person. He receives worship without refusing it. He forgives sin. When Jacob wrestles with him, Jacob says, I have seen God face to face. The Hebrew word for angel simply means messenger. It describes a job, not a nature. So an angel sent by God and the Son of God are not automatically two different answers. The honest position is this. The text does not name him. What the text insists on, over and over, is that he was there. And there is one more voice worth bringing into this furnace, because it was spoken long before the furnace was ever built. The prophet Isaiah had written these words to the very people who would one day be carried into Babylon. When thou passest through the waters, I will be with thee, and through the rivers they shall not overflow thee. When thou walkest through the fire, thou shalt not be burned, neither shall the flame kindle upon thee. Read the prepositions carefully. Through the waters, through the fire, not around them. Not instead of them. God did not promise his people a life without furnaces. He promised them a particular kind of company inside one. And in Daniel, chapter 3, that promise stopped being poetry and started walking. And now the detail that almost everyone misses. They went into that furnace bound. Nebuchadnezzar looked in and saw them loose. Something burned in there. The fire did its work. But the only thing it consumed was the ropes. The fire that was meant to destroy them destroyed nothing except what was holding them. They were freer inside the furnace than they had been standing outside it, and the fourth man did not pull them out of the fire. He walked in it with them. And watch what the king has to do next, because it costs him everything. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace. He came near. The same furnace whose heat had killed his strongest soldiers at the doorway. The most powerful man alive walks up to it himself, because there is no one left he can send and nothing left he can command. And he spake and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, ye servants of the Most High God, come forth and come hither. Servants of the Most High God. Hours earlier, this same man had demanded to know who that God was that could deliver them out of his hands. He has his answer now, and he gives it their names, out loud, in front of the empire he gathered to watch them die. The king calls them out, and every ruler in the empire crowds around to inspect them. And the princes, governors, and captains, and the king's counselors being gathered together, saw these men, upon whose bodies the fire had no power, nor was an hair of their head singed, neither were their coats changed, nor the smell of fire had passed on them. Not a hair, not a scorched coat, not even the smell. Anyone who has stood near a bonfire knows that smoke follows you home in your clothes for days. These men walked out of the hottest furnace in Babylon carrying nothing of it. They did not merely survive the fire. The fire left no claim on them at all. And then the man who built the golden image issues a new decree, and it is the opposite of his first one. Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who hath sent his angel, and delivered his servants that trusted in him, and have changed the king's word, and yielded their bodies, that they might not serve nor worship any god except their own God. Change the king's word. He is admitting, in an official proclamation, that 3 foreign captives overruled him. And the chapter ends with a line that quietly reverses everything. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. The men who refused to rise for the image were the only ones in that entire plain who were lifted higher. So what do we carry out of that furnace ourselves? 1. Faithfulness is decided before the music plays. Those 3 men did not make their choice on the plain of Dura. They made it years earlier in small and unwatched moments, and the plain of Dura only revealed what was already settled. 2. But if not is the purest form of trust there is. God is able. That is certain. Whether he chooses rescue in the way we hoped is not ours to know. Faith that survives the word if is faith that has stopped bargaining. 3. He does not always take us out of the fire. Sometimes he walks into it. There is no promise here that we will be spared the furnace. There is a promise that we will not be alone in it, and that the only thing burning will be what has been binding us. If something here has touched your heart today, perhaps that is not an accident.